Kia ora, good evening. Well, a 4-month-old baby is caught in the middle of a row between his parents and Health New Zealand. He needs life-saving surgery, but his parents don't want him to receive blood from those who have been vaccinated. And now Health New Zealand wants guardianship. Dozens of the parents' supporters turned up at court, and Alice Wilkins was also there.
At the centre of all of this,
it's a freedom to choose,
is one tiny person, a 4-month-old baby.
He's stable at the moment, he's doing well, he needs an urgent operation.
Except progress to get that operation has come to a standstill as his parents engage in a standoff with Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand in court.
The baby concerned obviously is really pretty much in uncharted territory at this stage.
The 4-month-old has the heart condition pulmonary valve stenosis. His case is severe and needs a procedure to allow blood to flow properly around his body. But his parents don't want the blood of those who've received a COVID vaccine to be used in his surgery. And while both vaccinated and unvaccinated people can donate to our blood bank, that blood isn't held separately.
By this stage, several weeks ago, a child with this condition would have been treated.
We need to have safe blood. That is our right as a mother and as my voice for my baby.
Now Te Whatu Ora has made an application to put the baby's guardianship into the court so surgery can go ahead, saying today in a statement, "We know that it can be worrying when parents have a child who is unwell and are making decisions about their care. The decision to make an application is always made with the best interests of the child in mind and following extensive conversations with whānau." But the baby's parents and their lawyer, known anti-mandate campaigner Sue Gray, say they have around 30 unvaccinated donors ready to provide blood for his surgery.
Where there's a solution, it would be really a shame that that solution be missed. The ideal outcome would be that the blood bank would agree to collect blood from these donors and put it aside ready for this baby to have the operation that he needs.
A crowd of the family's supporters gathered outside the High Court. The medical fate of their baby put on pause until the matter is heard in court next week. Alice Wilkins, Newshub.
On the project, Jesse, you've got more on the baby who needs urgent surgery.
Yeah, such a tough story, this one, Sam, isn't it? And I think everyone wants the same thing, which is whatever's best for the baby. Well, tonight we're looking at options. The 4-month-old in genuine need of medical intervention and parents unwilling to give him what they call jabbed blood. There seems to be a bit of a stalemate. So where do we go from here?
We thought or hoped these scenes were a thing of the past. But today, protesters were out in force again. This time it wasn't about mandates, vaccine passports, or even the vaccine itself. It was about a baby. This 4-month-old needs heart surgery and a blood transfusion, but his parents don't want blood from donors who got the COVID vaccine.
We must have the option of unjabbed blood in New Zealand. Furthermore,
Health NZ is seeking guardianship of baby, with a medical expert warning any other child would have been treated weeks ago. The parents argue their options are inadequate and only want what's best for their family. And they have a few supporters. But politics and beliefs aside, what can be done now to get this baby the blood he needs?
Well, let's ask Professor Nikki Turner, Director of the Immunisation Advisory Centre. Nikki, couldn't we solve this right now by taking some blood from one of these protesters and get that baby the surgery it needs?
No, we need to offer this baby safe, quality blood product. We can't just give the baby any blood off the street. The point of New Zealand's blood services is to ensure that people get blood that is safe for the individual, and that requires to match the blood type, and it also requires screening to make sure there's not any real threats in the blood, like viruses like HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C. You know, our blood products are really well controlled. You know, we're not in a war zone. We have to offer our baby good quality blood.
Surely if you wanted to, though, you could find out the blood type of these unvaccinated people and do the screening and then supply their blood to the baby.
Yes, you could do all of that, but it requires quite a lot of effort and quite a lot of process. And our services are under an enormous amount of strain, and you can't easily just do it for one individual. You know, we do this en masse for all our very ill and very needy people. So it is theoretically possible, and certainly when we have emergencies, we drop our quality standards. But we would not drop our quality standards when there's no medical reason to do so.
Surely we could do a one-off where we take the blood off an unvaccinated person, screen it, it doesn't matter that it's so hard, and just get some blood to this baby. We could actually do it.
But even if we could do that, and then what if people think there was a problem and that's why we did it? So then 100 people ask us to do that, and then 200 people, and we did it for no logical reason. We'd be sort of opening up a problem that wasn't a problem. So even if it was possible, which from my understanding from our health services, it's not that simple, we'd be creating a bigger problem.
Do you have some sympathy for these parents who, to be honest, just like any other parent, are doing what they genuinely think is the best thing for their child?
Look, I have enormous sympathy for these people, and they've got real reasons why they may not trust health services. You know, health services are not always right and don't always get it right. And all I can say to them is that from the bottom of our heart, the New Zealand health services are trying to offer the best quality service we can offer this baby.
So what would you like to see happen here?
Oh, look, I would really like to see people be able to sit down and work through where their fears and anxieties came from and really work them through. These things take a long time and require a lot of trust. So I think this is one example of how we need to try and build up trust again, you know, that our health services are here to help our people, not hinder them. And, you know, really sitting down with people, these families, trust and trying to work through where their fears have come from and how we can move through them. It's pretty difficult when you've got an emergency and a child needing surgery pretty rapidly, though.
Professor Nikki Turner, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Who has ultimate say on a child's health care, the parents or the state? A dispute over the medical care of a 4-month-old baby sparked a protest yesterday outside the High Court in Auckland. A preliminary hearing was held with Health New Zealand seeking temporary guardianship of the young boy while he undergoes a life-saving surgery. For this, he needs a blood transfusion, but his parents object to blood from vaccinated people being provided to their son. The case continues, but in the meantime, to discuss the general issues around this, Auckland University Medical Ethics Professor Tim Dare is with us. Tim, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for being with me. Who ultimately has a say here?
So the default position is that parents have the right to give consent to decide what medical treatment their children has, just as adults have the right to decide on their own medical treatment. Parents, that right extends to children for parents. But there are limits, and the basic limit is that our freedoms are all limited by the possibility that we might harm other people. So I can basically run my life as I wish, provided I don't harm another person. And in this case, the other person is the child. And so the state has the right in a small range of cases to step in where parents' decisions threaten the interests of the child very clearly and dramatically.
Okay, what about in cases where a child is obese and there is a suggestion the parent has been feeding the child too much food, or they've not been providing their child with enough exercise or something like that? How do you draw a line?
Well, so the advantage and the threats have to be very clear. So there are a few cases where parents have refused consent for chemotherapy, for instance, which have gone to court, and courts have given the state guardianship just for long enough to treat the child. Some blood transfusion cases on religious grounds where parents object, but those are cases where there's a very clear, discrete threat, and it's often easier when the intervention is a one-off. So with diets, you know, what would you do? You know, you would have to have guardianship of the child indefinitely to change the child's eating habits.
That's right. So it's basically where a hospital is involved. That's where, you know, there's a distinct and almost urgent medical intervention that's required, and a hospital is involved, and then you get the state coming in and going to the courts.
It almost certainly will be hospitals, and it's that situation where you have a treatment that you can do for the child, and with any luck, the parents are happy to have that done, and then child goes back to the parent and life goes on. So that's the sort of paradigm case where this is.
Okay, so the cases you've mentioned, like Jehovah's Witness, etc., has there ever been a case where the state has lost and where the parent's right has been upheld?
So there are cases. I mean, often it'll turn on uncertainty about the effectiveness of treatment. So taking the parents out of the loop is a significant step, and so the courts will be reluctant to do this. The hospital will be working furiously to find a solution to this case. So they're not going to want to involve the courts if they can avoid it. So there have been cases. They're likely to be ones where the outcome of the treatment is not certain, where it doesn't look unreasonable for the parents to say, we're unsure about that treatment, and there's likely to be some uncertainty about the outcomes on the medical side too. But this is a case where there's a very clear, safe intervention, the transfusion bit of it at any rate.
Yes.
And on the science side of it, there's no real doubt about the need for this transfusion. So
that's right. But could there be an argument mounted, and I'm sure this is what the lawyers will try and do for the parents, that there is an alternative that is their preference that they are willing to accept? It's not like they're saying no transfusions at all. There is an alternative potentially that they would be willing to accept. Would the court take consideration of that?
Oh, I'm sure they will. I think actually it's rather unfortunate that this is all being fought out in the public gaze.
I know.
Because in fact what would normally happen, and I'm sure what's been going on behind the scenes, is that the hospital talking to the parents, trying to find a way around. Unfortunately, we've got ourselves in the situation now where the hospitals will be reluctant to lose this case because there's no question that the vaccine skeptics, if the court gives the right to the parents, will think, oh, we were right about going for the vaccines.
Right.
And so...
But that can't be the court's consideration, right? I mean, they can't be worried about the implications, the social implications of a potential decision.
Well, that's a relevant consideration, but I think what's essentially what's likely to happen is that the court will stay out of the science. They will say we accept completely the mainstream medical view about the transfusion. Most of the parents' views about the transfusion look unreliable. They're strongly held, and no one should doubt these parents are doing the best thing for their kids. I think they see themselves doing the right thing, but the court will essentially, I take it, I suspect, side with the doctors on the science, and then the question will be, well, can you still respect the parents' view without being seen to endorse the content of their views? And that's why a workaround, so the what are called direct donations, where you line up a series of donors, is likely to be considered and will be attractive. There are some issues with it. So one is there's no reason that the doctors would consider giving the child transfusions which were less safe than the ones they would get from the standard blood bank.
Totally,
so if direct donors turned up, the doctors would perfectly reasonably say all of that blood has to be tested.
Absolutely.
All the standard things need to make sure it's the right blood type, so on and so on. And I suspect the cost of that has to go on the family, and that would be one way you would control the precedent value of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, well made. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It is a fascinating case, but as you say, a shame that we are having to talk about it in an open public when you've got a 4-month-old baby involved. But I appreciate you coming on the show all the same.
Thank you very much.
That's Medical Ethics Professor Tim Dare with us this morning, 16 after 7.
OK, let's go back to the dispute between Health NZ and the parents who are refusing a blood transfusion for their 4-month-old baby because they don't want vaccinated blood. The baby urgently needs open heart surgery, and a special hearing to resolve the matter is going to be held at the High Court in Auckland on Tuesday. Sue Gray is the lawyer representing the parents. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Heather.
Sue, how sick is the baby? What's wrong with his heart that he needs surgery?
Look, he's stable at the moment, but he was a premature baby, and they thought that he was doing okay, and then it turned out that the hospital had missed a problem with his heart, and it emerged a few months after he went home that he just wasn't growing, but he's actually doing pretty well at the moment.
So do you know what it actually is?
No, it's got a complicated name, but it's basically something, I'm sorry about that, yes.
That's all right. How long can he wait for surgery?
Look, nobody really knows at this stage. The sooner the better, and it's obviously better to give him the surgery while he's in a good, stable, healthy condition. Nobody would want to give him surgery if he went downhill and it was even more desperate.
Is that likely?
Look, it looks like over time he definitely will go downhill, and it's being treated as a priority emergency as soon as this issue can get resolved.
So how soon do you guys, I mean, you're meeting next week. How soon would you need a decision after that?
Well, we'd hope that the court would give an urgent decision, and whatever the decision is, progress can be made from there.
Pretty much on the day?
Yeah. Well, I think it takes a couple of days to set up all the blood supplies and whatever needs to be done, but as soon as possible after that.
So if the court was to rule on Tuesday, which presumably is the earliest it possibly could rule, then that baby would be having surgery before the weekend?
That's what we'd like to think, yes.
Do you think that you can agree on a compromise, agree to a compromise with Health NZ before next week's hearing?
Look, we've been exploring that possibility, but it's looking like the difficulty is actually with the New Zealand Blood Bank, and they seem to be very fixated on what processes they're prepared to do and what they're not prepared to do. I'm always optimistic, so we're still exploring.
So is it because, have they said why?
Well, they don't believe there's any difference between vaccinated blood and unvaccinated blood, and so they don't believe they should have to go to any extra trouble for baby Will. Whereas from Will's perspective, there's a lot of evidence that there's inflammatory factors in the blood. For example, that's why we're getting these myocarditis cases.
No, okay. So I don't want to go into your beliefs on this one, because I think we're never going to agree on it. So let's just stick to the facts on this.
Well, this is one of the issues, though. We don't need to agree to respect.
Yeah, but I just can't. Views. Sue, I've got to be honest with you. I just can't go there, okay? I just cannot be bothered with this. So
okay, well, look, you can't, but a lot of people are really concerned, and there's a lot
That's
of
okay, I understand that. I'm not
about.
denying that people are concerned about it. I'm trying to find out what is going on here, okay? So let's talk about what's going on with the blood service. Is it basically that they are saying it's too hard to do this?
They're saying they don't want to because they don't believe there's any need to.
Is it because they are stretched like everybody else in the health system, maybe?
They haven't said that.
Okay.
They have said there are different components of blood, and some are more difficult to arrange than others. But they haven't said that they're too stretched. They've just said that they have protocols and this is how they do things.
So have they outlined, if the court was to rule that you could use alternative blood, have they said how long it would take to screen those people and then get their blood and all that stuff that needs to happen?
Well, a lot of the people that have offered to be donors for the baby are already regular donors for the New Zealand blood supply anyway. It's just a case of saving that blood separately from the vaccinated blood.
Okay, so all 20 of them are already donors?
No, I didn't say that. I said a lot of them are.
How many?
As I understand, I don't have that information.
And do they all match the boy's blood type?
No, that the baby needs O blood because that's the universal donor. So my understanding is that there are at least 20 to 30 people that meet all the necessary criteria. We've actually had a whole lot more people come forward today, although they haven't been screened to see whether they meet the criteria or not.
And those 20 to 30 people who meet the necessary criteria, are they also donors, existing donors?
Many of them are. I can't tell you if they absolutely all are.
If the court awards Health NZ the guardianship, which is what Health NZ is asking for, what will you do? Will you appeal?
Look, I don't have instructions on that at this stage.
Okay. If the court awards for the parents and allows alternative donors to be used, do you believe that other people opposed to the vaccine will ask the same?
I mean, that's speculation. I don't know any more than you know. I do know that a large number of people are really concerned that they're not being given this choice.
Okay, Sue, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you talking us through that. Sue Gray, lawyer for the parents.
The lawyer acting for the parents who are demanding only blood from unvaccinated donors be used for their baby's life-saving surgery says the couple are being unfairly treated. The case is going back to the High Court next Tuesday, with health authorities asking for the baby to be placed under the guardianship of the court. Now, the parents are convinced any blood from vaccinated donors is unsafe, but Immunisation Advisory Centre Medical Director and vaccinologist Nikki Turner says that is not true.
So what we do have in blood products is our immune response, either to COVID disease or to a vaccine. And the immune response is what you will see in blood. And that's the same to any virus we're exposed to, COVID or any other virus. So from a science point of view, there are no concerns here.
The lawyer acting for the family, Sue Gray, is with us now. Kia ora, good morning.
Kia ora, good morning, Corin.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me on.
You're welcome. Now, firstly, are you seeking a one-off exemption here for this case, or some sort of a change to the law, which, as my understanding, would be needed for this to actually happen?
Neither of those things. This is an application by the Health New Zealand, the new entity that runs all of the hospitals in New Zealand. And from what I can understand, it's unprecedented for what's called medical guardianship.
You misinterpreted my question. The client's request here to have blood that is unvaccinated, are you seeking this just as a one-off case where you've got some donors on your own, or are you trying to have effectively what would be a law change, from my understanding?
It doesn't need a law change, but for these clients, the focus for their baby, and that's that's who I'm appearing for, the best for their baby.
So you're not trying to get some blanket change here. You just want them for this case, and you have.
Yes, it doesn't need a law change. It just needs the New Zealand Blood Bank can already do direct donor blood. And we've got correspondence from them saying that they can do direct donor blood in appropriate cases. The question is whether this is an appropriate case for what's called direct donor blood.
And the parents, are they comfortable? They trust the doctors and the surgeons to carry out this operation?
Yes, they do. Look, the baby was born with a congenital heart defect and it's already had one operation. They just want the best care for their child.
Okay, so they trust the medical science behind those surgeons carrying out that operation, yet they don't trust those same doctors who do trust the blood services' blood. Where is the logic in that?
Oh, there's a huge amount of logic. There's a lot of evidence, including from MedSafe, the New Zealand government regulator, about the harm or potential harm from the Pfizer vaccine. And we had a child.
No. I want an answer to the question that I asked, which is you trust the doctors, the medical science behind the operation. Those same doctors are not willing to cede to your request. They trust the blood from the blood service. They accept the truth, which is there's no risk here. Yet you're not willing to trust them.
That is not the truth. The truth is there's a huge amount of international research showing that there are factors in blood that can cause inflammation.
I'm sorry, Sue, but that is not the case. If we look at the Federal Drug Administration, the Canadian Blood Services Board, these have all found there is no issue here. We've got New Zealand's MedSafe, we've got the Blood Service, the Immunisation Centre. The overwhelming scientific evidence is clear. I don't want to have a discussion about the research because you and I are lay people. We trust the experts.
The reason we're in court is to have this discussion that needs to be had that nobody's been having. And I can give you a very simple reason why we need to have this discussion. Rory Mann died from myocarditis following the vaccine. That's the report of the coroner.
Again, look, I'm a layperson like you are a layperson. We work in a system in a country that trusts experts. And I want to come back to the point. You trust the experts and the doctors to perform the operation, yet you don't trust those same doctors who are 100% confident in the blood.
They're not 100% confident. What they're saying is there's been no testing done on the blood, so they have no information to show any harm from the blood, but they haven't done any testing, and they have no testing to assess what factors are in the blood, if there's any spike protein in vaccinated blood.
I'm just sorry, but the overwhelming medical advice and experts in this country that we live in is very clear that there isn't a risk. And I wonder, are you concerned that this might...
You're not listening to what you asked me a question. You're not listening to my answer. I had a meeting with them yesterday. They confirmed at the meeting they had no way of measuring the blood to see what is in it. And we know that the factors from the vaccine, according to MedSafe's own website, can cause harm. It can cause inflammation, myocarditis. It can cause thrombosis. It can cause anaphylaxis. It can cause all sorts of... And vasculitis is
Are you
latest
applying
one
the
that
same rigour to the other drugs that will be involved in this operation, the anaesthetic drugs, the other procedures?
This question is not about those. This question is about an identified...
But it is about that. It is about our faith in medical science, scientific method, research and institutions. I mean, 11 billion doses of this vaccine have been administered globally.
It's not scientific method to give a vaccine, effectively and by an indirect route, give a vaccine that's not approved for people under 5 to a very vulnerable baby who's got contraindications for that vaccine. That is not scientific method.
None of this is passed on in the blood. But again, I want to come back to the point. You and I are lay people here. We live in a system that trusts
I have
experts.
got a science background. I've worked in public health, and I've got contact. I'm in direct contact. I've been researching this and related issues for the last 2 years. I've got a huge amount of data.
That is, with the greatest respect, I'm sure you're an expert in the law, and as a lawyer, and I'm not an expert in the law, but we are lay people when we put our faith in medical professionals, and that is what we do. I want to come back to the other issue. Another issue here.
That is why people die. That is why, when you've got a very unique condition, it's important to do additional research because the doctors are busy. They know what's generally
Come on, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not. No, we're not going to have that discussion. I want to come back to the other issue, which is the danger around a precedent here. Are you concerned that this is the danger here, and even having this interview, that there may now be somebody who goes to A&E and demands to have blood that is unvaccinated and puts their life at risk? I mean, this is crazy.
There's already been a number of people asking for unvaccinated blood. A lot of people have lost their job. They've lost their careers because they don't trust vaccinated blood and they don't trust the vaccine. So that's already happening. This is making no difference. What this is doing is getting some conversation about these important issues that need to be discussed.
There is no conversation to be had when the medical experts and the medical professionals in this country, in just about every country in the world, when the WHO are adamant there is no risk here. I mean, 11 billion people have had the dose of vaccine in the world. 11 billion. Are they all wrong?
Thousands have died. In New Zealand, I've just got an OAA. I think it's 47.
No, I'm sorry.
In New Zealand.
Thousands have died from COVID-19. I'm sorry. People have died from the virus, from COVID-19.
No. They've died from the vaccine.
That is not... There may well have been the
Information Act request that a lot of people in New Zealand have died after the vaccine, attributed to the vaccine from conditions that MedSafe recognised.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to entertain that argument because that is not correct.
Well, this is really difficult to have the conversation when you won't listen and when you won't look at the evidence. Because
the reason I'm sorry for interrupting, and you may think I'm being rude, but the reason I'm doing that is because, again, I trust the medical science, the people who will be performing that surgery.
We trust them as surgeons, but they're not experts on the Pfizer vaccine and the risks in blood. And I can tell you that for sure because there's a lot of research that we've got from around the world that these doctors were not even aware of until we started providing it to them.
Okay. Sue Gray, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for coming on. I do appreciate that. I'm sure people will have views on that interview. That is the lawyer acting for the family, Sue Gray.